I'm CJ Sarter. I'm here with Mary Manhein, who's the author of the 2014 River Reads book selection, Bone Remains, Cold Cases in Forensic Anthropology. And she's also head of the FACES Lab here at LSU. Thanks for letting us come by.
Oh, you're welcome.
So what was your reaction to having your book selected as the one that we've asked everybody in Ouachita Parish to read this summer?
Oh, I was thrilled. I just think that it's a wonderful honor for our community to read one of my books. I was very pleased.
How did you get involved in this line of work?
Well, I was an English major. I planned to teach English all across Louisiana, and I took a course in anthropology and fell in love with it. So I knew I had to go on and get my master's degree in anthropology, which that's exactly what happened. So in using my anthropology degree, I've also used my English degree, and it's kind of come full circle now because I do a lot of writing also.
Yeah, and you've written 3 nonfiction.
3 nonfiction
and 1 fiction.
That's right, and I'm working on my next nonfiction, which has to do with cemeteries, but I'm also working on my second in the fiction line.
Oh wow, that's great. That's something for us to look forward to.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Wonderful. Why did you decide to write this particular book?
Well, it's the third in the trilogy for the cases I've worked on over the years. I've worked on hundreds and hundreds of forensic cases, and many of those in this book are cold cases. And we've begun a cold case database that has been very successful. So I really wanted to spread the word to my audiences that this type of database has success, and one of the reasons is the public involvement in what we do. So I wanted to illustrate things we do by using some of the cases that I've worked on in the past, and also by looking at some of those that are unsolved.
Now, most of your cases, both solved and unsolved, impact the families as well. Have you heard from any of them about being included in the book?
Well, I've often talked with the families before I put cases in the book, and occasionally one or two people have written me or called me and said they appreciate it, and they appreciate the way that I handle the case in the book. I'm very cognizant of how I handle a book and the feelings of the family, how I handle a story in the book. So I don't want to reveal anything on a case that is unresolved, and I don't want to do anything that I believe will offend the family. So it's not at all unusual for me to have talked with the family.
There are some cases in the book, though, that you don't have an answer for yet.
You mean in terms of identification?
Yeah.
Right, and those are the ones that really trouble us the most, because our goal is to identify all the cases that come to us, and that's the importance of the website itself, because it helps other people all across the country actually to see the cases of unidentified on our website, and may be able to give us some clues as to who these people are.
Now, tell me the website again.
It's identifyla.lsu.edu.
Some folks might wonder how you handle the more grisly aspects. Does it ever get to you?
Well, I think that I look at it as something we have to do in order to be able to get to the bone. We have to see what is beneath the decomposing tissue, because we are the bone people. And so in order to get there, we do have to resolve the putrefactive tissue that often is there. So we have to remove it. And these cases are very sad. Oftentimes those that are certainly homicides are tragic, and occasionally the families of the victims will call me, and that's heartbreaking, but we have to be objective about it. I always remember it, but I always have to set aside my personal feelings, because our role is to scientifically profile that case and get on with the business: age, sex, ancestry, time since death. If they already know who the person is, then often we're asked to look at the trauma, and we may have to appear in court and testify as expert witnesses. So I have to remain objective, but I can't say that cases don't affect me. I think that would be unrealistic, but of course they affect me, but I know that what I'm doing has the goal of helping the family.
Sometimes you're asked to work on historic sites. How does that differ from your regular cases?
Well, for one thing, you don't have an emotional attachment to it, because for people to say, this case doesn't bother me, or I just don't even think about this case, I think is unrealistic. But when it's a historic or prehistoric case, you can separate yourself from it because so much time has occurred since the event. So it's much easier to do that. And it's intriguing also because we don't have to harden our minds against it. You know, you just go on and be the science and then forget it.
And then there was the mummy. That was different.
It was so much fun. That mummy was a mummy that my sons and I used to look at when we would go down to the museum here in Baton Rouge when they were very young in the 1980s. And we would peer into the glass and look at that mummy, never dreaming that someday I'd get to work on that mummy. But the only thing we were allowed to do was x-ray it. They wanted to learn some more information about it. And we found out a good deal more information about it by simply using our techniques that we use in modern cases, even from an x-ray. I don't want to spoil the end of the story so much, but it was wonderful fun. And now it's on display down at the museum, and we've learned a lot more about it. We did a facial reconstruction on it. Wow. And so we feel as though we've learned something about the past 2,500-year-old mummy from Thebes.
How do you do a facial reconstruction from just bone tissue?
Well, you know, there are all kinds of studies out there that have been done on the thickness of the facial tissue. We've actually done several studies. We have scanned hundreds and hundreds of people with ultrasound, non-invasive, and come up with averages of the tissue thickness on the face at certain locations across the face. And from that, you simply put markers there that indicate the depth of that tissue, and you slowly build the face back. We have formula for creating the nose, for creating the mouth, for creating the ears, for putting the eyes in place. We use prosthetic eyes. So there's a lot of different studies that have been done that help us to do this. And our whole idea is not to create an image that looks exactly like the person. The idea is to create an image that someone who knows that person sees that person in that image. And that's the most important thing. Sometimes we're spot on and it looks a lot like the person, and sometimes it doesn't look like the person.
But sometimes it's just enough.
Is just enough, because someone who knows that person says it's all in the eyes. It was in the line of the jaw. There was something about the mouth. Wow. And plus the fact that we have a lot of information about the case, and they usually know their friend or loved one is missing, and so those are added clues also. But it has been very successful for our lab.
You've been doing this a long time. How have things changed?
Things have changed a lot in many ways. We have a lot of modern technology that helps us. We have databases that help us. We have tools that are very different. Digital developers, all of the scanners, the printers, those are wonderful, wonderful helpers. But it all boils down to the innate ability and experience of the person who's working in the field too. You can never replace the true forensic anthropologist.
I noticed a lot of your team members are women. Is that different from when you first got started?
You know, I got into it in the fall of '81, and very few people were doing this. It was a new field. In recent years, of course, everyone has discovered it because of the television shows. There were very few people in it, though, but it has been the ride of a lifetime.
Speaking of TV shows, how do you feel about those shows, like CSI and Bones and Cold Cases?
Well, I think they're great fun. You know, I don't really watch them. I've watched a few minutes of several of them, but a lot of young people especially watch them and will write me and ask if they can do what they do on TV, and I explain that it's not really the real world. They use dramatic license, but they also use scientific techniques or the appearance of them in their programs to make it look more real. But if they're fun to do, and they've brought an incredible popularity to the field.
And you can't really solve a case in an hour.
Never. I don't say never. Wait a minute. Let me say more than likely not. It's just not the way it seems on TV. It takes a lot of time. We don't dress like they do. We don't have the labs they do. As I tell my students, we wear things you can bleach. That's our motto.
When a body or a skeleton is found, just where do you begin?
Well, the first thing we do, if someone has found one and they contact law enforcement, which is the first thing they have to do, and it appears that there is a skeleton in the woods, buried, whatever, the law enforcement will call us and we will make more often than not, we will make arrangements to travel to that area. We want to be there in the daytime. So if it occurs at night, we ask them to hold the site until the next day. And then we strike out and get our team together, get all of our tools together, travel to that location, very, very carefully recover the remains and bring them back to our laboratory, describe them. The first thing we do is an x-ray all the way down the body, looking for any kind of clues, looking for any sign of a bullet, some type of weapon that was used, and then we begin the process of determining the age, sex, ancestry, time since death, all of these trauma, all of these different things that can provide clues for us to be able to identify that person and figure out what happened to that person.
But a lot of it has to do with what you do actually in the field too, doesn't it?
Oh yes, I mean it's very important to recover it properly. We are trained in archaeology, so we use what we call our bioarchaeological techniques to set up a unit sometimes and sometimes not if the body is widely dispersed by animals especially. And we've gotten quite a few cases like that in the last few years. And so we recover it, we pinpoint it using GPS, a global positioning system, in order for anyone to go back to that exact spot where the body was found if they need to. And so we use we use a metal detector to scan the entire area looking for anything made of metal that might provide more evidence for what happened to that person. So we can take all day to recover a body, or our skeleton, and then bring it back to the lab.
When people comment on your work, what are their biggest misconceptions?
Well, that we can solve every case, that DNA solves everything, and it doesn't, that we should be able to get everything taken care of in a day or two. Sometimes it takes us weeks and weeks to resolve a case, and it's never really resolved until the person's identified and maybe the perpetrator or the alleged perpetrator is found, goes to court, adjudicated, all of these things. So a case is not over after we get through doing the profile and sending the report to the law enforcement agency. We'll put it in our database, we'll take a DNA sample. If the person is unidentified, that DNA is analyzed at the Louisiana State Police Crime Lab, and then it's uploaded into the national DNA database called CODIS for Combined DNA Index System. And so that's when the opportunities arise to get the unidentified identified through a cold case hit, which we've had several cold case hits before, where DNA from somebody in one area of the country links up or connects, or is a spot-on match to what we've put in there, and then boom, and it's called a cold case hit, which is, it's not that doesn't happen that often, but when it does, it's a wonderful feeling to get these people identified.
What's the one thing you want people to remember after they've read your book?
I guess the fact that we are an agency, a help agency that's out there, that we can help them resolve cases. And one of the more important aspects of it is the missing persons aspect of our database. We want citizens of Louisiana to know that there is an agency here, there's a laboratory here at the LSU campus in Baton Rouge that can put the information about their missing loved one into a database that can be viewed from any place in the world. And if their loved one who's been missing has not been found, then we offer the opportunity for them to have an area where the information about that loved one is posted. And so that's extremely important. So the more people learn about our lab and about our database, the more opportunity we all have to resolve some of these cases.